by saying that today's message comes to us. It's called Watch the Signs. That's what it's called, Watch the Signs. Now, I actually come from a mechanical background. I know a lot of you have already know that, but before being a pastor, I was a mechanic, machinery mechanic. I'd work on all sorts of things. Now, I've because of my mechanical background, I like to sort of get my mind into these sorts of mechanical things. And I actually drive a VW Passat, or Passat, I think they say Passat. Now, it has the most amazing array of warning signs that can come onto the screen. I've never seen a car that has so many warning signs on it. Now, let me just see if I can share my screen with you. Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to get this shared. Here we go. Everyone see that? Okay, so here we go. Here's a little bit of a dash view of the VW Passat. And it's got so many different warnings on it. And I was actually amazed at the amount of warnings that it had. So one day I thought I'd try and get up as many warnings as I could all at the same time. And it's funny because the car will do this. It'll actually cycle through all the different warnings on the display in the middle. So I was able to get up, and this is just a short list of the different warnings I was able to get. The washer fluid, you know, the water that sprays up on the front window? There's a warning for that because it gets too low. Okay, so I had the washer fluid warning going. At the time, my boot lock was broken, so my boot lock warning was also going. And then I ran the car right down on petrol, so it had a warning for refueling warning. And then also I had the service due warning going as well. So I could get all 4 warnings going, and they were cycling through. And, it was funny to be able to, watch the car trying to give me all of these warnings. And every time when I got in the car in the morning, all these different alarms and things started to go off because of, all of these silly warnings that were taking place. Now, I don't know about you, but our home is also filled with all sorts of devices now that have warnings on them. Think about it. There's the washing machine. When it finishes doing its washing, what does it do? It starts the little piezo alarm, bam, 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 the washing machine's finished, and then the dryer finishes and it goes off and it warns us about something as well. There's alarms and warnings all through our house. Have you ever, I don't know about you, I'm going to do a little competition here. I'm going to give 3 people the opportunity to tell me what they think is the most annoying warning in their house that they have. Has anyone got a hand that we want to put up? Who thinks they've got the most annoying warning?
Everybody else Dexcom on the phone.
Smoke detector.
The smoke detector. Oh, that's a really good one. There's they all the time. You don't know where it's coming from. Who else has got another one?
The alarm to wake me up.
Yeah. One more. Lorraine. Lorraine, have you got one?
Turn on the refrigerator the refrigerator door when you're trying to put your shopping in and it keeps telling you to close the door. You can't do both.
Yeah, that's a really good one, especially if the kids have spilled something in there and you have to clean it out and leave the door open forever. Look,
the grease filter on the range hood.
Oh boy, okay. I've never heard of that one. I've actually got one in my house, which I believe is the most annoying alarm ever, and that is the Thermomix. If you've got a Thermomix, what it does is when it finishes its cooking, it just alarms and alarms and alarms, and it won't stop until you turn it off. It's really, really annoying.
And it's very loud.
And it's very loud. Yeah, that's right. There's another thing, it was funny. I was watching, as you're driving your car and these warnings start to come on. There was a funny show I used to watch called Tim the Toolman Taylor. And his wife called him up one day and she says, "Hey, honey, the car's stopped." And so he goes over and visits his wife where the car's stopped. And he says, "Well, what's wrong with it?" And she goes, "Well, I don't know." And he goes, "Well, has it run out of petrol?" And she's like, "I don't think so. It's got plenty of petrol." And he goes, "Well, did any warning lights come on the dashboard?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, there was this light that came on." And he goes, "Oh, well, what color was it?" She goes, "I think it was red, and it looked like a little bottle with something coming out of it." And he goes, "Oh, so you didn't think to stop the car?" And she was like, "No, I thought it would get brighter or start flashing or something, you know." And of course, it's the low oil light, and she's ruined the car. There's warnings all over the place that help us to be aware of things. And this is just one way in which God actually, well, I mean, we use it, but God also uses warnings to warn us about things that are coming up. God knows that we need warnings. And so today we're going to have a look at some of the warnings in the Bible that are helping us to be prepared for his second return. Now, I'm just going to share my screen once again. Sorry, just give me... Sorry, let me just share my screen. Now, from this point now, I think I'm just going to leave the screen shared from this point on, just to make it easier for you all, so you're not jumping to and fro. So the first warning that we have, well, actually, there's probably not the first warning, but one of the great warnings was the building of Noah's Ark. Did you understand that Noah's Ark was actually 130 meters long, 22 meters wide, and 13 meters high? Now, that's a huge boat. That's if you compare Noah's Ark to a modern cruise liner, it was probably just under half the size of a cruise liner. It was smaller than the Titanic, but still a very, very large boat. Now, Noah, it probably took him somewhere between 55 and 75 years to be able to build this boat. And so I guess that sort of was a warning. There's just the sheer point that this huge boat was being built. Some people estimate that the population of the world at that time was about 750 million people. However, it's really hard to gauge how many people were around at that time, simply because, you know, people were very evil. There was a lot of war. There was a lot of probably fighting and conflict, and maybe the numbers could have been quite a lot less. However, only 8 people got on that boat. Only 8 of them out of all of the people on the earth at that time. That was probably a warning that no one, apart from the family of Noah, really took seriously. Just like some of those alarms in our house, we don't really take them seriously. And yet this warning was one that people should have taken seriously. It was one that was going to save them their life. I guess the point is that God placed that there as a warning and as a chance for people to get on board. The second one is the plagues. If you've spent any time with the Bible, and maybe if you haven't, the plagues was a time when there was a whole nation of people who were slaves in Egypt. And God, through a series of plagues, was able to move the people out of Egypt. There were 10 plagues in total. In fact, I guess the first one, it wasn't really a plague, it was more of an event. Aaron's rod became a snake. The water became blood. Frogs began to live everywhere. Swarms of flies, the death of the cattle, boils on people, hailstorm, locusts, and darkness, and the death of the firstborn. Now, before every single one of these events, these plagues, what did Moses do? He went over to Pharaoh, and he warned Pharaoh about what was about to take place. Every single one of them, Moses warned Pharaoh what was about to happen. Now, talk about wear out your welcome. Here's Moses 10 times going over to visit Pharaoh. I wonder what Pharaoh was thinking when Moses showed up at the door. It's almost like, you know, those people who knock on your door and they're trying to sell you electricity or something like that. You almost want to hide, don't you? You know, here's Moses coming 10 times to warn Pharaoh about what was about to take place. Now, the Hebrew people were actually not living in the central area of Egypt. They were living in another area called Goshen. And God made a difference between them and the Egyptian people. They only experienced the first 3 plagues. That is the rod turning into a snake and water to blood and the frogs. But all of the other plagues after that, they did not experience. Have a look at this verse here. It says, sorry, I'm just going to have to move this so that I can see. Okay, that's still not the best, but anyway, I'll do my best. It says here, but on that day I will deal differently with the land of Goshen, where my people live. No swarms of flies will be there, so that you will know that I, the Lord, am in this land. And I will make a distinction between my people and your people. This miraculous sign will occur tomorrow. So God actually made a distinction between the Hebrews and the Egyptian people so that they could see that there was something different going on here. Now, the very next plague, the plague of hail, was so strong. This plague was so strong that it had the potential to be able to kill. Now, I don't know about you, but does anyone remember the hailstorm that came in Melbourne in 2011 during Christmas time? It was Christmas Day, and there was such a strong hailstorm in Melbourne. I was actually with my family at a church friend's house, and that hailstorm just covered our car in dents, and it's never been the same since. It was so strong. As I said before, I was a mechanic, and I was a mechanic on a golf course. Every now and then we used to go and play golf, and you know, the hailstorms, the stones were as big as golf balls. I remember, you know, our golf course was in Western Australia, and there was heaps of kangaroos there on the golf course. And I remember that as you you hit the ball up the fairway, the kangaroos were there, and every now and then you'd hit one, and they wouldn't even move. They are so tough, those things. Like you can drive a ball on a par 4 or something like that and hit straight into a kangaroo, and they don't even really move. They just sort of hop just 2 or 3 more hops or something like that. They're incredibly strong, those things. But this hailstorm was so strong that it was able to kill people and it was able to kill animals. And so God actually sent extra warning about this one, extra warning to everybody so that they wouldn't get caught in this hailstorm. It comes to us from Exodus chapter 9 and verse 19. It says, "Give an order now to bring your livestock and everything you have in the field to a place of shelter, because the hail will fall on every man and animal that has not been brought in and is still out in the field, and they will die." Those officials of Pharaoh who feared the word of the Lord hurried to bring their slaves and their livestock inside. But those who ignored the word of the Lord left their slaves and livestock in the field. So far out, this plague wasn't going to affect the Hebrew people. This was a warning for the Egyptian people to take to listen to. And some of them actually listened and brought their people and their livestock inside. So God warned them before this took place. I'm not sure how long it was between the warning and the actual hailstorm, but it is clear here that a lot of people listened to the word of God and they brought their people inside. Now, something that I've come to realize just recently is that God doesn't expect us to do anything that he doesn't already do himself. Now, that applies to many different things, but God is warning the Egyptian people, you see, here. And what does he expect from us? What does God expect from us? If God has warned these Egyptian people, what does God expect from us? He expects us to warn people as well. Have a look at this verse here. It says, surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. So God gives a warning to his prophets, and then what does he expect the prophets to do? It says here in Ezekiel, but if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes the life of one of them, that man will be taken away because of his sin. But I will hold the watchman accountable for his blood. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. When I say to the wicked, O wicked man, you will surely die, and you do not speak to dissuade him from his ways, that wicked man will die for his sin, and I will hold you accountable for his blood. It's our job, isn't it, friends, to warn people. We have an enlightenment. We understand a lot about Bible prophecy, and we have this responsibility to warn people before this, before these events come. Let's look at one more verse about warning. Revelation chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants, what does it say there? What must soon take place. God is warning his people. It says again, blessed are they who hear it and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. The time is near. So that burden is placed upon us that we should be warning other people. Now, I guess there's lots of negative stories about warnings where people did not listen. But there's actually one really great example of where people did listen to the warning. It's fantastic. And it comes to us from the events surrounding AD 70. Let's go to the passage here. Jesus was teaching his people and he said, when you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you will know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those in the city get out, and let those in the country not enter the city. For this is the time of punishment in fulfillment of all that has been written. Now, Jesus here was talking about, of course, the war or the siege that was about to happen in AD 70. Sorry, let me just adjust the computer a little. This siege took place, but before it took place, there was a warning. In AD 66, someone called Cestus Gallius tried to attack Jerusalem, and his armies came to Jerusalem to attack it. Now, he got as far as I can't quite remember exactly where it was, but he got inside the city, but he didn't get into the Temple Mount. And then he was actually driven out of the city. It seems as though he lost some siege equipment, so some of his equipment had been lost, and he had also been taking losses on his supply line, it seems, and his supplies weren't as strong as they should have been. And also he was probably worried about October, the rain coming in October, and stopping him from being able to supply his troops during a siege. So Anyway, all of that having been said, these troops came in 66 AD, and then what happened? They all left again. Now, what did Jesus teach his people? He said, when you see these things, escape, run to the mountains. Okay, that was the warning Jesus gave. And as it is told in history, it seems as though the Christian people listened to Jesus at that time, and they used that as a warning, and they did. They escaped the city. Have a look at this quote here. It says, the whole body, however, of the church at Jerusalem, having been commanded by a divine revelation, given to men of approved piety, there before the wall, removed from the city, and dwelt at a certain town beyond Jordan called Pella. Ecclesiastical history, that's where the source comes from. So this was actually a quote from a historian called Eusebius, who wrote that. He testifies to the fact that the Christian people in Jerusalem at the time escaped the siege that then happened in AD 70. And if you know anything about the siege that happened in AD 70, it was a very, very, very bad a very bad plague for the people who were stuck inside that city. It was not pretty at all. So we are living now in a time of warnings, aren't we? All the signs are pointing to the same direction, that Jesus Christ is coming back soon. But the problem is that we become immune, or we become sort of ignoring the signs. You know, I'm a minister, and I'm often taking Bible studies with people, and there's one particular Bible study which is about the signs before Jesus comes back. And as I go through all of those signs, yeah, you can sort of see them, and it's almost as if like I've become immune to some of the things that have happened. But now, with this disease that's taking place, I tell you what, it's so much of a wake up or a reminder about these signs are real, friends, you know. Just like those alarms in our house, that the alarm will go off, like say for example the alarm to wake up in the morning, and what do we like to do? It's like hit the snooze button, or to turn it off and roll back over into bed. And that's exactly what we're doing with the signs that Jesus is giving to the whole entire world at this time, is that we're just like trying to ignore them or just forget about them. Oh, it's just another war. Oh yeah, the world's always at war. It's just another war. Or oh, it's just another superbug. Yes, another bug's coming around. Oh yeah, just another one. Or just another earthquake, or just another famine, or just another tsunami. You know, but these are actually the signs that we should be taking notice of. You know, we're living in a time where these signs are happening all the time now, and we can become immune to them. We don't actually look into them anymore. Now, for us, it's time to wake up. Have a look what happened with Jesus' disciples. Mark 14:37, it says, then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Simon, he said to Peter, are you asleep? Could you not keep watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Jesus' disciples had fallen asleep at a critical time in their life. And we're not to do that. We're to wake up. Jesus, this point where the disciples fell asleep is specifically relating to our time now, where we must not fall asleep. Here's another one about falling asleep. It says, Matthew 25, verse 5, the bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him. Another instance where God's people were falling asleep at a critical time in history. Have a look at this quote now. Comes to us from author author Ellen White, it says, men and women are in the last hours of probation, and yet are careless and stupid, and ministers have no power to arouse them. They are asleep themselves, sleeping preachers preaching to a sleeping people. Hopefully, I don't want to be a sleeping preacher, and I don't want our church to be a sleeping church. But it's a warning to us, isn't it, friends? We must wake up. We must be aware of the time in which we're living. When Christ comes back, we don't know, but we need to be aware. Last point I want to make today is this one. This is 2 photos of Mount St. Helens. A lot of you will remember this. This is a huge volcano in America, in southwestern Washington state. And in March 1980, it was giving off a lot of earthquakes, lots of little earthquakes in March. And all the way from March, all the way up until it actually exploded I can't remember the date, but there it is, September 10, 1980. I'm pretty sure it was April when it actually exploded. But this volcano not erupted, but it had lots and lots, actually thousands of little earthquakes before it exploded. Now, those little earthquakes were the warnings. There was then one earthquake, 8:32 in the morning, which was a 5.1 earthquake struck. The earthquake was about 1 kilometer down in the earth. And that earthquake, actually, can you see the photo there? The front of the mountain has disappeared, hasn't it? And you know where that front of that mountain went? It slid down the front of the volcano, and it slid over the top of the people in that region who were there. It was absolutely terrible disaster. 57 people died on the mountain. That earthquake, after the front of it, people said that it was about 1 million Olympic pools worth of material that fell out of the front of that mountain and the volcano and slid down and covered part of Spirit Lake and the other people there. There was a man there called Harry Truman. He lived there on the mountain. He'd lived there for 57 years. And I can understand him because he'd lived there for so long. He had buried his wife up there on the mountain too. But even though the council had told him to get out of the region because of these warnings, these rumblings and earthquakes, even children had written letters to him asking him to get out of the way because he was a local man. He ran a lodge there. People could come and stay at his lodge. People who were writing letters to this fellow asking him to get out of the area because of these earthquakes that were taking place. But he didn't listen to them at all. And so Harry Truman, unfortunately, did not survive the day he was buried underneath all of that. When the volcano, after the earthquake, the volcano erupted and it destroyed everything in a 10-kilometer radius around the center of the volcano. All the trees were covered up. A lot of them were burnt because of the volcano, the magma spewing and the ash. The ash actually went around the world when this volcano exploded. Friends, God is sending us warnings right now that he's coming back soon, and we don't want to ignore them or fall asleep or just hit that snooze button with these warnings. Let's have a look at this next verse. It says, 1 Thessalonians 5:4-6, it says, "But you, brothers, are not in darkness, so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You are all sons of the light and sons of the day. We do not belong to the night, nor to the darkness. So let us not be like others who are asleep, but let us be alert and self-controlled. You know, just this week we were discussing the deception of Satan in Wednesday prayer meeting. And one thing that came to my mind as we were discussing that was that I think one of the key deceptions that Satan has is that he tricks us into thinking that we can't be ready. He tricks us into thinking that we can't be good enough. Like, you hear stories about these people who are so amazing and they read their Bible and they have such a good knowledge and the miracles and prayers being answered and all this fantastic stuff happening. This is the kind of stuff we read about. And then Satan tricks us into thinking, well, we can't be like that. You know, I'm never going to reach that standard. I can't be saved. You know, that's a deception of the devil, because all of those people who are powerful with the word, with the Lord, you know what they did? They submitted themselves to God and let him take control of their life. That shows me that everyone can be ready. Everyone can be in a position where they are prepared for Jesus Christ to come back. And sure enough, we have to be prepared for him to come back. So I guess the only thing left to do is to think about, what are we going to do? What are we going to do at this time when all of these warnings are taking place? What are we going to do, friends? Are we going to roll over and just hit the snooze button? Or are we going to take them seriously? If there's a time in history to take God seriously and to put God first, it's now. If we're not going to do it now, when are we going to do it? It's time to put God first today and now. There's nothing more important for us to do. Today is the day. Please make a commitment today to put God first in your life. May this day not go any further forward without you committing to him and saying, Lord, I'm going to put you first in everything. I'm going to put you first in prayer. I'm going to put you first in Bible study. I'm going to put you first in service. With these three things, we can be ready. Humility, putting God first. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We can trust our God. He will look after us. And he, if we submit to him, will have us prepared and ready to meet him when he comes. Thank you so much. God bless. Let's join together in a word of prayer. Holy God, I thank you so much that you're aware that we need to be warned. You're aware that we are a sleeping people at times, sleeping at a time that is so critical. Holy God, please help us to wake up. Help us to take you seriously. Help us to take these warnings seriously. You warned people and you expect us to warn them as well. Please, Lord, may we be awake and waken up others as well at this critical time in our history. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much, everyone. Really awesome to have you here with us today. Just before we go, and again, I will leave the Zoom on for a little while, but I'm going to share with you my screen, which is just some announcements. The ones being that, let me just get it set up here, that if you would like to contribute your tithes and offerings online, you can do so. So here we go. I'm just going to share the screen. So if you feel like you would like to contribute your tithes and offerings online, you can do so at these details. Just a reminder that we do have our Wednesday prayer meeting. Please come along to Wednesday prayer meeting. We're talking about this book here, Great Controversy, and we're looking at the last 10 chapters. Come along. It's been really, really great time together. Thanks, everyone. I'll leave the Zoom running for a little while. Sometimes the kids like to chat and talk to each other. But God bless. Have a great Sabbath afternoon. And please, if you want to, share our Facebook page, share our website, share our YouTube channel, share the emails that I'm going to be sending around. Share it. May more and more and more people come to visit us here online, church. Thanks so much. God bless. Have a great day.